LBC, I'm Clive Bull. With me, Kate Faulkner, property expert, and property lawyer Russell Conway. And we'll have more of your questions and calls on 0345 6060 973. Now, thanks to Direct Line Landlord Insurance, today we're talking about malicious damage to rental properties. And Christina Dimitrov from Direct Line is here to tell us more. Hi, Christina.
Hi, Clive. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for coming in. So tell us, what is malicious damage? What do we mean by that?
Well, first of all, it's important that we know there are two types of malicious damage. One, there is a damage that is deliberately being carried out by people who are unlawfully on your property. So, for example, your rental property could be broken into by vandals, and they could then go on to spray graffiti all over the walls, to destroy your furniture, to damage other items. Now, this feature is typically included as standard with most landlord insurers. However, what this feature won't do is cover any damage that is caused by your tenants, or in fact anybody who is lawfully on the property. So that is then the second type. And if you want to cover damage that's being intentionally caused by your tenants, what you need is a cover called malicious damage by tenants. So for an example, some landlords really aren't very lucky, and they may have rogue tenants who then go on to vandalize their property. Now, that can happen at any time, but it's more likely to happen at the end of a tenancy if there hasn't been a happy end, and perhaps after an eviction. And cover against this type of claims is available as an option with most landlord insurers. And what it will do is it's typically going to cover you up to the sum insured of the buildings and the contents you've chosen.
So what type of malicious damage are we talking about here that landlords tend to experience?
So, Clive, I can give you a number of examples here. We have seen claims that range from removing and stealing tiles, pulling out, stealing kitchen units, stripping out copper piping. The tenant then steals it to melt it down after leaving the property. It can also be causing flooding purposely. And then, of course, there's vandalism, like the example I mentioned before, caused by the tenants. But of course, there's another severe example that's been covered in the media earlier this year, and that's when tenants are turning properties into cannabis farms. And in fact, Direct Line have looked at claims data, and they found that 1 out of 11 malicious damage claims for properties in the years 2014 and 15 were in relation to cannabis cultivation. That's 9% of all malicious damage claims. And also, and finally, there is the case of electricity theft. That is a type of malicious damage claim that is quite closely related to cannabis cultivation. And in 2014, 1/4 of all cases investigated by the police were in relation to the production of illegal drugs.
How much of a problem is this? Is it a big problem in the property market?
Well, you need to understand the biggest problem about malicious damage lies in the nature of the claims, because they're typically a lot higher than the average landlord insurance claims. They can run into the tens of thousands of pounds. Just imagine the type of claim you have. You have a kitchen unit that's being broken out of a wall. You have damage to the wall. You need to replace the unit as well. I'll give you another example. In March 2015, Direct Line awarded a policyholder £14,708 to repair malicious damage to their property in Leicester. This had been caused because the tenant had used the property to grow cannabis. And the problem really is that landlords only learn about the damage once the tenant has left the property, and then they need to fix the damage, which in turn may delay the landlord from renting out the property again. And so actually, a malicious damage claims can result in the landlord losing rental earnings. And so the problem we've got here is that many landlords are not aware that their standard insurance does not cover malicious damage by tenants. And what they need to do is go back to the insurer, have a read of their policy documents. For example, Direct Line for Business offers malicious damage by cover as an optional extra.
And anything else that landlords need to think about if they want to minimise the risk of malicious damage?
Well, it all starts with choosing your tenants wisely. So it's imperative for landlords to do the right background checks, to reference their prospective and new tenants thoroughly. And also, one advice we have is landlords should not be tempted to accept cash offers for several months of rent in advance, because that may be a sure sign the applicant is tending to use the property for criminal activity. Overall, however, the best advice we can give is you should have a peace of mind as a landlord. You should make sure you have the right insurance in place to cover you against malicious damage.
Christina, thank you very much indeed for coming in. Thanks to Direct Line Landlord Insurance as well. And for more information and for the chance to win a tech bundle, go to lbc.co.uk. And it's the Property Hour here on LBC.